Welcome to Surf Kayak and Waveski Surfing, a beginner's journey. I'm your host, Richie Guerrero. In this multi-part series, we'll talk about all the things that a beginner might be going through, as I've been going through them myself. We'll be talking about different surf kayaks, wave skis, equipment, and how to ride waves. But more importantly, how you can have the most fun possible in the sport of surf kayak and wave ski surfing. Hey everyone, welcome to Surf Kayak and Waveski Surfing, a beginner's journey. I'm Richie Guerrero here on Long Island, New York. Today we're going to talk about surf kayak paddles. Our main focus today is to talk about materials: plastic, aluminum, fiberglass, carbon fiber. If you are using some cheaper paddles like plastic and aluminum, which we'll talk about, great, no offense, you got $50 going all the way up to hundreds of dollars and to $500 for a paddle. But I have broken the cheaper ones, and I've had longevity with the ones that I've put some money into. So we're going to talk about all that. But before we do that, probably one of the best ways that we can get into this is by trying out someone else's paddle. And you can do that by going to eastcoastwaveski.org and checking out our events that we have coming up. Our next one's in North Carolina in April. We'll be in Florida during the summer, and then we'll be in New Jersey sometime in September, and there'll probably be some pop-ups here and there throughout 2024. And I say that because that's what I did. So what am I holding here? My first type of paddle, which is a Dick's Sporting Goods Kmart special. I might have ordered this online. And this is probably the exact type of paddle that you do not want to be using out there in the surf. Yes, they're cheap. I've owned plenty of them, and I've broken at least 5. So there's a few reasons why. One, this is about 220 centimeters, and we're going to talk about the length. So kind of a rule of thumb, if you're a beginner, is get a paddle that's about 15 to 20 centimeters taller than you are. So I'm 5'9", that's 175 centimeters, and 15 is 190 centimeters. That might be a good paddle size for someone who's 5'9", or 195, somewhere in that realm. So this one is about 220. I think we have a few of these in the garage. So if you saw my videos with the GoPro pointing this way and the wave is on my left side here, you can see me turning into the wave. And you can see the length of this paddle, and there is no way I could do some of the turns, the simple turns I was doing, with a paddle that's over 200 centimeters in length. You can see the paddle I'm using is actually 185 centimeters, and you can see it clipping the wave. And you can see the pros. What are they doing? They're digging the paddle in right next to their surf craft and changing directions. They're also paddling very quickly, which you cannot do on one of these paddles. So This is considered a low angle paddle, and they're usually a bit longer. And low angle means you're going to use a lower angle. This is a high angle. This is a low angle. A low angle paddle stroke, right? It's going to be hitting the water further out there. And that's just not the type of paddling we do in the surf. We're going to need to keep the paddle closer to our surf craft and do more explosive, quicker types of paddle strokes. And this is just not going to cut it. Another thing is that these are plastic blades. So you can imagine being tossed upside down, going all different ways, the paddle hitting the surf craft sometimes, and I've broken plenty of these. It's just not stiff enough to do the type of explosive, quick paddling that we need to do. Also, this shaft is aluminum, and I can tell you right now, eventually the salt water and the sand is going to start to work its way and weaken this. And I can also tell you that if I stood up right now, put this over my knee and tried to bend it, I could, because I've done it underwater, holding on to a paddle leash and have it just Superman bend right down the middle into a V shape. So that was fun. So that's aluminum. This is also a two-piece paddle, and I can tell you that probably all, if not 99.9% of surf kayakers and most whitewater kayakers are going to use a single shaft. They're not going to be able to take their paddle into two pieces. And I can tell you from experience that this style of paddle eventually, after long surf sessions, the sand and the salt are going to fuse these two pieces together, and you're never going to get it apart. And then you've got this gigantic long paddle. So this is my preferred paddle. I am a brand ambassador for AO, Atlantic Ocean Paddles, run by Alessandro Bacalotti. What's great is that I messaged him directly and had so many questions, and he was very responsive and got back to me. And if you look on my screen, I'm using his Mazar style blade. He also has an Antares Nebula for surfing, which is a little more delicate, and I've used that before, and that's a great paddle. But I suggest you all contact him and see what he can do for you. But if you think about upgrading from one of these paddles, okay, what's the next step? Well, if we talk about aluminum and plastic, we're going to start to bring in materials. Fiberglass, carbon fiber, shortening your length. So if you look on my screen right now, I took a poll, and in our Facebook group, I'd say out of all of these, 190 centimeters, 192 seems to be the general size. Yes, the pros will use 180 centimeter paddles, and some even a little shorter, and some use a little bit longer, and they have their reason. You know what? I'm going to post all those comments in the YouTube comments so you can read what they wrote on Facebook. But this is 190 centimeters. This was my first fiberglass carbon paddle. This one right here is 190 centimeters. So what's the difference? Well, if you upgrade, the first step is adding fiberglass. And yes, some companies will have a plastic blade with fiberglass reinforcement. That's a baby step up. Probably the next step up is using fiberglass for the shaft here and fiberglass for the blade. And that's what this particular paddle is here. Fiberglass shaft and a fiberglass blade. And if we take this paddle made by Macski, who I'm also a brand ambassador for, it's a lot stiffer. I can try to bend this and it's not happening. So you can imagine how great that is in the water when we need to push the water around us and change directions and start paddling hard, right? Or jam it into the water and redirect, right? The nose or the tail. If you zoom in to the fiberglass paddle, you can also possibly see some of the strands from the fiberglass cloth. And this is an interesting paddle from Macski because the sunlight will pass through the outer part on the other side of the core, which is pretty interesting, and it's a nice design. We can also add carbon fiber to the mix. Now, This is my preferred paddle. I have a fiberglass shaft, which is very strong. I have carbon fiber blades. So once again, carbon is very stiff and strong. So if you zoom in and you take a look, you can see the fabric of the carbon fiber in the paddle, and generally they're going to be black, and you can see the shape of this paddle here. And another thing we'll look at here is you can see, if you're looking straight at me, that the blades are not even, and we call that feather. And at first it seems pointless. I surfed that way without a feather for a year, and I did some research and I found out why. You know, the shorter you go in your paddle length, the closer you're going to be to the water. And this is called high angle paddling, just like in whitewater. Also what happens is, if I try to, let's see, I'm going to keep my hand straight here. And once I start going up at a higher angle, you should try this, all right? And the blade starts going that way, it starts going that way. If I try to keep my hand straight, it's weird. Your wrist, I can feel it pulling on my wrist. And if I were to just tilt my hand backwards, wow, it relieves all that stress and it feels comfortable. So what happens is, with the feather, I'll have a control hand, which is my right hand, and this is considered R30, meaning these blades are offset at 30 degrees. There's also 45 degrees, which is greater. There's also 60 degrees. I'm used to an R30 feather. So if my control hand is here and I've got it locked with the angle of the blade, this hand will be a little bit loose. So I can keep my hand a little loose. I can let it tilt back when it starts getting high in the air. I can do my stroke, and when I come back around, I'm going to keep it loose. I'm going to rotate the paddle just slightly, and my hand here is going to be cocked backwards. Once you get used to it, after some sessions, you'll never go back. That's not 100% guaranteed, but I can tell you that I'm never going to go back. So I've been wanting to keep these videos pretty short, and I guess the point of this video is, if you are getting into this in any seriousness, get away from these paddles that you can buy for 50, 60 bucks and upgrade yourself to a fiberglass paddle, carbon fiber blades if you're up for that upgrade. You can get a carbon fiber shaft, and of course that will increase the price even more. And one more thing is, some companies will offer foam core, a foam center in the blades. This just in, IO is now offering a foam core carbon blade that is 50% lighter than traditional solutions, very responsive and very powerful. And I'll put that new info in the descriptions below. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and yes, everyone is different. So there is no hard rule of what you have to do. You just want to be comfortable out there, and I suggest, if you can, get out there and experiment in some different types of paddles in the surf, because guarantee you put a couple of years in, you're probably going to change and upgrade even more. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.
sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and leave your comments down below. You can also follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and I'm also a member of the East Coast Waveski Association.